speak with Deacon Nathan Gunn about his new Advent book, A Rule of St. Nicholas. Yeah, very nice. So keep it here on Conversation with Cardinal Dolan on the Catholic channel, Sirius XM 129. You are tuned in to Conversation with Cardinal Dolan. I'm Father Dave Dwyer. We're now joined by a permanent deacon for the Diocese of Syracuse in New York and the Young Life Initiatives coordinator in the Northeast. He's here to talk about his new Advent book, A Rule of St. Nicholas, available now on Amazon. Welcome to Conversation with Cardinal Dolan, Deacon Nathan Gunn.
Good to see you, Father Dave. Cardinal, how are you?
Fine, Deacon Nathan. All the better for having you with us. Thank you for your good example of Advent patience, because we were supposed to have you, if I'm not mistaken, on our first show of Advent. I don't know what happened, but anyway, we're glad. Thanks for waiting around. When did the book actually come out?
Right before Thanksgiving, mid-November.
And
launched on Amazon.
Who put it out again? You guys have seen it. It's an excellent Advent spiritual reading, and it's good, especially for family preparation. If I understood right, Nathan, you really kind of did this. It flowed from family traditions, and it was sort of a defense mechanism to protect Advent spiritually from the encroaching commercialization of Christmas. Is that right?
Well, that's precisely it. So I have two young sons. Well, back in the day, 15 years ago, my wife and I had two little boys. And, there's multiple pressures around this season as a young family. I didn't lack confidence that we could teach them about the Holy Family and about, of course, baby Jesus and the Incarnation. But the real trouble was, how could we almost survive this kind of gauntlet of this season, rising up with everything the culture throws at us? And how do you take a young person who's immersed in so much of the secularization of Christmas and allow them to find this beautiful spirituality? The other issue is, how in the world do you do that and still not be a person who ends up giving your kids bananas or oranges for Christmas? I mean, Legos themselves are not evil themselves, right? So how do you find that balance? And really, I heard you just highlighted the idea of shopping for St. Nicholas with some of the young people in New York City. We really gravitated and moved towards that tradition about how can we make this season about others and about giving. And St. Nicholas emerged as the central figure. And so we began family traditions around the saint, and it really led ourselves into an adventure that's kind of defined our family for the last 15 years.
I like that, what you spoke about, Nathan, that sense of balance, because, and you get it in the book, we're talking about A Rule of St. Nicholas, How to Save Yourself and Your Family from a Modern Western Christmas by Deacon Nathan Gunn. You speak about the balance because we don't want to turn into killjoys. I mean, the surest way we lose our kids if we said, you gotta scowl and you can't start thinking about Christmas until Christmas Eve. You don't do that. Actually, Advent enhances our celebration of Christmas, and thinking about St. Nicholas early on in the Advent season, December 6th, his feast day, allows us to kind of relish and preserve some of the spirit of giving and joy and charity, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just had on the bishop there from Kentucky. And imagine that on this previous Sunday, as you did at St. Patrick's, we're still preaching a message about joy. I mean, how is that possible here 2 years into a pandemic or in a diocese that's been, destroyed by natural disasters? How can we still preach joy? Well, we can preach joy because of who we knew Christ to be in our lives. And so we have to somehow find a way for our young families and for our young people to take the realities of the world today and still also communicate the spiritual reality of who Jesus is in our lives and who he is coming to us at Christmas to be. And so we found St. Nicholas to be this just really compelling figure, not only because of what he did while he was alive, of course, as the Bishop of Myra, but then so many things he did after his death or as his legend grew. And you think about even that figure of Santa Claus, which I think he's allowed to be developed and portrayed in our culture. I mean, is there any more figure in the world that's more joyous or associated with children, happiness, generosity than Santa Claus himself? And so we leaned on that figure, even that kind of icon of Santa Claus, as a place to our kids to attach joy meaning, purpose, and generosity.
You know, too, in your book, I really appreciated you got into the historical roots. And I learned, Father Dave, when I was Archbishop of Milwaukee, which was a heavily German archdiocese. It were the German immigrants. And they had a great tradition that I had never heard of called the Heiligen Helfen. That's the German for the Holy Helpers. And it was a list, if I'm not mistaken, Nathan, of 14 saints who were especially sought for miraculous intervention in times of trouble and emergencies, the Heiligen Helfen. And who's near the top of the list but, ta-da, St. Nicholas. So we sometimes just think of him as an Advent and Christmas figure, but no, I mean, he's a saint for the entire year. Were you aware, Deacon Nathan, that we just reopened the Patriarch of Constantinople? A great man was here for the Greek Orthodox Church to rededicate the St. Nicholas Shrine down by the Ground Zero site. And they, of course, have a deep devotion to him. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife and I Tammy and I got to be down there last Saturday. It was a beautiful day, and we enjoyed lunch, down in Chelsea Market, and then we went down and took the train down to visit it. And it's a stunning reminder. I think they designed it to be light coming out of the darkness.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way for people to go and visit it. And
light from death, light from darkness. And of course, the Patriarch presented us with the major relic of St. Nicholas, his arm. So the arm of St. Nicholas is venerated there. Yes, I was very happy to see that it wasn't grasping a bottle of Coke, because that old advertisement, remember?
With Santa Claus.
So I thought,
Cardinal, you can bet that Coca-Cola is trying to figure out a way.
They'll figure it out. Right? And you can bet, knowing and loving our Greek Orthodox brothers and sisters, that if they made it attractive enough, they'd bite. Okay? Sure. As we would.
There were so many moving stories that I read about, not knowing the history, that a previous Tsar of Russia had given that little parish some relics, years ago. And then, of course, when the towers fell, the relics were lost. And I think a few individuals were actually at the parish and perished on that fateful day. And hearing the testimony that the loved ones believe that they died in St. Nicholas's arms.
Oh,
I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful thought.
Is that beautiful?
And when you think about St. Nicholas being named as one of the patron saints of New York, here's a man who was alive 1,700 years ago, and yet even today, his relics are physically present in Manhattan. It's a staggering story because it's this blending of history and something that's tangible, and then of course things that are legendary and that are kind of harder to prove. And yet the reality is, as my children always say, kids wake up on Christmas morning and their stockings are hung by the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas will be there. And there's presents under the tree and stockings are full. And all these traditions that happen that are real, even though some of them are rooted in legend, it's just a beautiful thing. It's very hopeful, very joyful.
Nathan, did you uncover why the Italian people have such a deep devotion to St. Nicholas? It's a very common Italian name for men, Nicola.
Yeah.
Did you discover? There's some connection. There's some connection with Bari, isn't there, Nathan?
Yeah. So roughly 1,000 years, 700 years after Nicholas perished. So you're talking about the 10th, 11th century. This is during the era of the Crusades. Some folks from Eastern Italy became concerned that his body and the holy site in Myra was going to be desecrated by the Crusaders as they went back and forth. And so they actually went over to Myra and took the bones of St. Nicholas and brought him over. It was in May, I think it was May 9th of the year 1087, something like that. And they brought him to Bari, Italy, which is on the Adriatic coast.
Yes, it is.
And so his bones remain there today. They built a beautiful basilica.
I see.
And my wife and I, we visited there and we went down into the tomb, and it is a stunning place of warmth, of joy, of hope, of worship. And it really blew our mind because here's a crypt that's 1,000 years old, and it has the aroma of the person of Santa Claus. And it just blew our minds that we could experience the sense of a person who had been buried 1,000 years earlier in a space that was real and in time. And so I think that's the origin on the eastern side of Italy for this devotion. Yeah.
Now, the residents of Myra probably are less than amused. Although I would guess today, Nathan, that Myra, which is in current day Turkey, if I'm not mistaken, there are no Christians. So maybe in a way it was providential that the relics were taken. Yeah.
Well, we know our access to them would be a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And it's probably, Joe, you'll have to look up if Myra is a titular see. You know that, Nathan, the custom in the church where dioceses that used to be thriving, like Myra, where St. Nicholas was from, and then are no longer, they become titular sees, just to continue to honor them. And I don't know if it still is. Joe's looking it up. Nathan, you're a good friend, and we appreciate all that you and your wonderful family do. Is your wife still teaching in high school?
She is right now. Christian Brothers Academy here in Syracuse, New York.
Way to go.
She, I hope that she got the classes praying and watching. They could all learn some things.
Way to go. And I guess you're how's the work with Young Life going?
Cardinal, we're cranking. We'll get a meeting together in January.
You are wonderful. I see sparks.
Things are
I see great. Sparks here in the Archdiocese.
Great.
It's a wonderful program, Young Life. Nathan, a blessed Advent and Christmas to you and your family and your wife. And thanks for reminding us of St. Nicholas.
Thanks, Cardinal. God bless. Merry Christmas.
I've always been somewhat surprised as when anywhere in Europe, really, you mentioned Italy, but anywhere in Europe, St. Nicholas is really one of the most popular saints.
Yeah, Heiligen Helfens.
Heiligen Helfens.
And I never knew the tradition. Bishop Richard Skilman, my good buddy, explained it to me.
Yeah. A friend of mine served at a parish in Allerheiligen, which I think is All Saints.
Okay.
I think it's in the Bavarian, it's in the Black Forest.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's when you said that, I'm like,
dun, 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 dun.
Is a titular see currently vacant?
Oh, vacant.
It's currently vacant. A titular see.
So what does that mean?
Everybody.
Tell us what that means.
You know what that means, everybody? Have you ever heard of that? So a bishop, by definition, should have a place. He's the bishop of a people and of a space, of an area. Some bishops don't have that, like an auxiliary bishop. Like I have wonderful auxiliary bishops here. But to sort of preserve that beautiful thought, they are given a titular see, a see, S-E-E, meaning where their chair would be, that is no longer functioning. And they're just not in areas that are now heavily Islamic. Both Bishop Byrne and Bishop O'Hara, two of my grand auxiliaries, have titular sees in Ireland. There's the guys they're all over the place.
So they're dioceses that are no longer, or they've been subsumed into something else?
They've been suppressed.
Okay.
And there's no people there. Hippo, where St. Augustine was.
Oh, okay.
So they're titular sees. I'll put in for one, if I ever get new auxiliary bishops, I'll say, let's ask for Myra. Okay? What do you think?
And that is different from cardinals in that your titular sees would be only
parish.
in Rome. Titular
we
parishes.
Get a titular parish because by definition, the cardinals are pastors in Rome.
In Rome.
Because the pastors elect the new bishop of Rome.
And that's how it was actually in ancient times.
Yes.
Yes. Centuries ago. Okay.
On the
other side of this joyous break, we'll be joined